Good morning and welcome to Arise News Now. I'm Gavin Ramjohn in London. It's Wednesday the 31st of July. And our top story at this hour, elections are underway in Zimbabwe, with voters going to the polls to elect a new president. Campaigning has been peaceful so far, but there have been allegations of fraud in the run-up to this morning's ballot. Results are expected over the next few days. In a moment, we'll be live from Zimbabwe. But first, David Pollard has this report.
The gloves are off as President Robert Mugabe slugs it out with rival Morgan Tsvangirai. The battleground not just political, but economic. Mugabe's rallying cry is decade-long sanctions. He says the US and its Western allies have cost Zimbabwe $42 billion.
Zimbabwe is not collapsed under the heavy weight of sanctions. We don't collapse, we never collapse.
There's no doubt that the health of most sectors, including the health service itself, brought to a standstill during 2008's elections, is taking a hit. Growth is expected to slow to 3.4% this year from an expected 5%. Agriculture in this former breadbasket of southern Africa has plunged. Mining is down 2%. And the man on the street is feeling the pinch. Philip Mafosa has seen what he earns from making reed furniture dwindle from $4 a day.
People aren't spending because they're nervous about the unknown. Before people started talking about elections, our sales were better. At the moment, I'm selling nothing.
It can get better. At least that's what the opposition says. Morgan Tsvangirai blames Mugabe's regime for the lack of foreign investment.
I am saying we should welcome investors, local and international. Stop this racist position.
But the key to preserving Zimbabwe's frail recovery may not be who wins the election, but how it's won. Political analyst Takura Jangaza.
Even though there has been indications as regards the economy or foreign direct investment that perhaps the West is willing to talk and re-engage Zimbabwe on issues related to the economy and investment, but the conditionality has been, is the election free and fair?
There are plenty of accusations of electoral malpractice, but some see hope in a rare display of unity between the two men earlier this year. Together, they pushed a new constitution through a referendum. It trims the powers of the president and imposes a 2-term limit. But it won't be retrospective, meaning 89-year-old Mugabe could, in theory, rule until he's 99 years old.
Well, much more on that story in the Arise News Hour later on. But now we can cross live to our reporter Shahan Ramkissoon, who's in Harare for us. Shahan, good morning to you. What's the atmosphere like on the ground there with the elections taking place?
Well, things are really calm in Zimbabwe. We went around to Mbawe, which was a hotspot in 2008 after elections there. Lots of violence back then, but this morning people were queuing since 3 a.m. saying that they wanted to get their vote done early, and really calm, really contrast to what we saw in 2008. So different people in Zimbabwe are saying that this is an educated decision, and they're now enlightened about exactly what they should be doing. They should be voting.
Shahan, there's talk of fraud, of course, coming out of the country still at the moment. So what are the allegations that you're hearing?
Well, Morgan Tsvangirai and the MDC came out a couple of days ago and yesterday again saying that there was a vote rigging that was expected to happen. They said that the results were supposed to go through to the army before being handed to the Electoral Commission itself. So they said that that's where vote rigging was going to happen. And we'll have to wait to see what happens with that. But of course, they did present their investigation to certain observers, SADC and the AU, saying that they had evidence that this was going to happen, and they're still awaiting assessment from bodies to investigate that themselves.
And as you mentioned earlier on just now, in 2008 there was a lot of violence from the fallout of the previous elections in 2008. What are the hopes for a free and fair election process this time?
You know, surprisingly enough, I spoke to a good couple of people this morning, and so did our producer James, and lots of people are much more optimistic, saying that they believe that this is going to be a free and fair election in Zimbabwe this year. Also a taxi driver as well, because he's been around with us the past couple of days. You know, why there's been this change, and how can people now say this is going to be free and fair? And his answer was that people are educated in Zimbabwe about elections, whereas previously it was about personalities and alliances political parties. Now they know who they need to vote for to get change in the country. And that's why things seem to be much more calm now than it was in 2008.
So Mr. Mugabe has been in power for 33 years. Do we know what the plan is if he doesn't win this election?
Well, lots of the people here are saying that they'll go with the MDC, even though they are staunch supporters of ZANU-PF, saying that, it's a democratic vote and that if the MDC is voted into power, and Morgan Tsvangirai in particular, that they will respect him as leader. So they say that there won't be violence if the MDC is voted into power. Of course, Mugabe came out yesterday, unprecedented, addressing the international media, saying that if the time comes and if he needs to surrender, he will do just that.
What are the key arguments as well from both the parties, the MDC and the ZANU-PF party?
Well, the MDC has taken this to the economy. Of course, Zimbabwe's economy has been struggling for many years now. Things have picked up, but it's not at a point where people can live comfortably across the country. Morgan Tsvangirai has taken his campaign to people, saying that there will be investments made in the country. He's going to attract foreign investors. That ultimately means more jobs for people across the country. We do know that Zimbabwe has a 70% unemployment rate, so it is really talking to the majority here when it talks about jobs. And also, ZANU-PF, Robert Mugabe has come out saying that he's going to address the youth in particular. He's set up a fund addressing employment issues for youth, and also, he's also looking at the rhetoric here, appealing to voters who would recognize the fact that he had a big role to play in getting rid of colonialism.
And when can we expect a result from these elections?
Well, that should happen within 5 days or so. We do know that Zimbabwe is planning, the Electoral Commission says that we should get results quite soon. Results from the special votes, which were held at the past weekend, are expected within 20 hours or so. So if all goes according to plan and all voting stations are closed on time, counting begins almost instantly, then within 5 days.
Shahan Ramkissoon, thank you very much indeed for that. Now, still on the subject of elections this morning, officials in Mali say the former Prime Minister, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, holds a comfortable lead and could win an outright first-round victory in the country's presidential election. No exact figures have been given yet, but Keïta is on track to win a clear majority if he maintains his wide margin. That would eliminate the need for a runoff poll. Still, the other candidates have rejected the partial results and insist it's too early to declare a winner. Whoever becomes Mali's next president will have to unite the divided country, which has seen a separatist rebellion and coup in the past year. Rebels from the M23 group in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo have been given 48 hours to disarm by the United Nations. The peacekeeping organizations say they'll use force if needed. 3,000 troops will help the Democratic Republic of Congo army set up a security zone in Goma. The UN have been given a mandate to use lethal force against the rebels, who they say have killed civilians in the region surrounding the city of Goma. Renewed clashes broke out between the rebels and the army earlier this month. A statement by the UN mission in the country has given everyone in the city of Goma and surrounding areas until 8 o'clock GMT tomorrow to hand in their weapons to the city's UN base, warning that anyone caught after this would be considered a rebel.
We didn't come here to fight. We came here to disarm. Definitely disarming might go into some kind of fighting, especially against those irreconcilable.
Now, Israeli and Palestinian negotiators will seek a peace agreement within 9 months after holding what's been described as a positive first round of meetings. US Secretary of State John Kerry made the announcement late yesterday, following a revival of long-stalled talks between both sides. Catherine Jackson has more.
State created in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, lands occupied by the Israelis since the 1967 war. The major issues to be resolved in the talks include borders, the future of Jewish settlements in the West Bank, the fate of Palestinian refugees, and the status of Jerusalem.
A US military court has found Bradley Manning not guilty of aiding the enemy, the most serious charge he faced for handing over documents to WikiLeaks. But the former soldier could still spend a long time in jail after being convicted for theft, fraud and espionage. Arise News' Sarah Hemrajani reports.
A military judge yesterday found US soldier Bradley Manning not guilty of aiding the enemy, but found him guilty of most of the 20 other criminal charges he faced in the biggest breach of classified information in the nation's history. The judge said Manning, who was accused of sharing hundreds of thousands of classified files with WikiLeaks, was not guilty of the most serious charge, which carries a penalty of life in prison without parole. The US government had pushed for the maximum penalty for what it views as a serious breach of national security. Anti-secrecy activists have praised the action as shining a light on the shadowy US operations abroad. Sentencing hearings will begin today. Sarah Hemrajani, Arise News.
Now, Iraq is no stranger to tourism, with countless pilgrims visiting its religious shrines. But now the country that touts itself as the cradle of civilization is seeing a growing number of tourists eager to visit its unique sites of history.
Iraq has always been a fascinating destination for tourism. Though the possibility of traveling there is daunting, for some it's an opportunity that can't be missed. Jeff Hahn owns the UK-based Hinterland Travel, one of the largest operators organizing trips to Iraq. He's been making the trip himself since the 1970s. But even he will admit that as bad as the security situation is in many parts of the country, demand for tours is growing.
We run about 2, 3, 4 trips a year now, increasing every year. Hopefully this year we'll run 5.
With support from a team of Iraqi guides and security officers, he's able to take intrepid travelers to ancient sites like the shrine of Sufi saint Al-Sheikh Maruf Al-Karhi, which is great news to Baha El-Mayahi, senior advisor in Iraq's Ministry of Tourism.
Now, if you mention Iraq in any part of the world, people will think about killings, terrorism and the unstable security situation. So we should work to change this image of Iraq.
Travel is complicated by both a lengthy visa process and a long trip from the safest entry point into Iraq, the Kurdish northern border, down to sites in the south of the country. Some trips might be an exercise in flexibility. Tours don't always go as planned.
It's still difficult to travel in the country. It's very difficult to see new places. So we expected, for example, to go to Hatra and Assur, and it was not possible.
For travelers willing to brave the challenges, Iraq promises them the chance to visit sites few tourists will see up close.
Now, in cricket, England face Australia in the third Ashes Test today. The home side take a 2-0 lead in the series, and victory, or even just a draw, will see them retain the urn. The squad are confident of claiming a third Ashes series win in a row, but aren't thinking about a 5-0 series whitewash, where they'd win every Test this summer.
It's not something that we're really focusing on, to be honest. We don't want to look too far ahead. Like I said, we played really well in the first 2 games, and our job now is to try and improve on those first 2 games, show some of the form that we did, and tighten up on the areas that we could tighten up on. And we're not going to look too further ahead than Thursday morning.
But the Aussies have batsman David Warner back in the team after a brief spell away from the squad.
Yeah, I mean, Davey brings a lot of energy to the group always. You know, he's just one of those guys. He goes at 100 miles an hour. So, you know, it's fantastic to see him get runs. He's such a destructive player that if he bats for a while, he could put some real pressure on England. So, yeah, I mean, if he plays, then hopefully he does well. He can, you know, have one of those game outs and help us win this next Test.
Ruto Menutite starred again at the World Swimming Championships in Barcelona, adding the 100 metres breaststroke world title to her Olympic crown. The 16-year-old clocked a time of 1 minute 4.42 seconds. Elsewhere at the championships, a United States teenager, Katie Ledecky, knocked 6 seconds off the 1,500 metres world record to finish in 15 minutes 36.53 seconds, ahead of Denmark's Lotte Friis. Don't forget, you can contact us online anytime. We're on arise.tv, the website there, Facebook/Arise TV News, and on Twitter @Arise TV. Thanks very much for watching. We'll keep you updated throughout the day.